Welcome back, friends. Now, I am still focusing on the importance of blessing the next generation, but in this video, I want to go in depth with the word Barak. So remember, I mentioned that the Hebrew word for bless is Barak, and today's video, we're going to focus on the Hebrew letters that make up this word. Now, Barak consists of three Hebrew letters: Bet, Resh, and Kaf. And these are letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, each letter of the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value. So the Bet has a numerical value of 2, Resh has a numerical value of 200, and Kaf has a numerical value of 20. So we see a commonality of the number 2, right? Very interesting. So Barak would give us a value of 222. How do we get this value? We add each value for the three letters that I mentioned, for the letters Bet, Resh, and Kaf. Now, the Hebrew word Barak, in order to get additional meanings of the word, we can break it up in different words. For example, Barak. The first two letters, the Bet and the Resh, can give us a word Bar. And Bar is the Aramic word for son. So we would have the letter Kaf. So Bar means son, and Kaf speaks to giving. So it is a letter that speaks to giving or receiving, right? So when we think about Barak as it relates to the next generation, and remember, Barak means bless, it would mean that the son receives. Bar, Aramic word for son, and Kaf receives. So the son receives. But what the son receives? The son receives blessing. And we see where the sons receive blessings in 1 Kings 2 and also in Genesis 48. Remember, the word Barak speaks to kneeling, offering something of value. And that is what Yaakov and David did. Gave their sons words that were valuable, not only for the moment when they were about to die, but for eternity, right? They set the destiny for their children. Now, I mentioned that Barak has a numerical value of 222. And if we switch the letters in the word Barak, we get the word Bekor. And Bekor speaks to the firstborn. Same Hebrew letters, and it speaks of the firstborn. And when I think of the firstborn is the one who always leads a family, after the father dies. That's an esteemed position. So when the father blesses Barak, the children, they are endowed with an esteemed position, and they are aware that, okay, Dad blesses me because there's something in me. Dad blesses me because he sees that I have, potential and I can be a great person. He passes on the traditions where, I can live by, or the standards of living. And we know definitely that the fathers passed on Torah, which is of great importance. Joshua 1 verse 8 tells us that when we meditate on Torah, then great success or good success will come to our lives. Now let's go a bit deeper. And we're going to focus on each Hebrew letter in the word Barak. So the Bet, everyone knows Bet represents a house, right? But to go deeper, the Bet represents a home that protects, that enables and supports, but it doesn't allow entry to the things below the accepted standard that exist in the home. So if we think about the home of David and the home of Yaakov, there's a set standard. Torah sets the standard for their living or for their livelihood. Right? There were people who studied Torah, right? And even on their deathbed, they encourage their children, they warn their children to study Torah. Do not depart from truth. So there's an expected standard that the children needed to live by. Now, fathers, you are hearing me. What standard have you set for the next generation? Is it a standard of truth or a standard of lies? Is it the culture of the Word of God or the culture of our world? There's a standard that you need to set, so God forbids, if you would pass away, your children know exactly what to carry on, what to live by. Now, the second Hebrew letter is the letter Resh. Right? Resh represents a container of the infinite and exponential growth. So the father sees the potential in the child and understand that, guess what? The child will not always be like this, but will grow, will mature, and Torah helps them to be the matured person they were created to be. Now, Resh also speaks to the spiritual DNA we are meant to explore. Genesis 1 tells us that we are created in the image and likeness of God. It means that we have God's DNA. So it means, therefore, that what Yaakov and David did, blessing their children, they are making them aware that, guess what? I am your daddy. But guess what? You have a supernatural dad, God himself, and he has placed his DNA inside of you. So it means that, guess what? The supernatural runs through your veins. You are greater than what you can think or imagine. Right? You have the potential. You are blessed with the supernatural power to be and do all that God has called you to be and do, despite the challenges that you may be facing. And so you dads, right, are given that responsibility to encourage your child. Let them know that they were endowed with supernatural abilities. They have the DNA of God inside of them because God has created them with his image and with his likeness. The Resh also speaks, or it is related to progress, refinement, growth, and learning. So the father, Yaakov, David, blesses his children because guess what? They need to grow up. They need to mature, right? There are things in their lives which needs refinement. There is always progress. So the father, when he blesses his children, he's saying, boys, you need to continue walking in the truth. You need to progress. And I mean, this is a new year. And so dads, you have to encourage your children to progress as well, to move forward, to be better versions of themselves. The Resh also speaks to the spiritual result of honest effort to develop and readiness to pay the price for doing so. So we know for sure that in order to become mature, there are challenges. Because one, it's challenging, I must say, to be all that God has called you to be. Why I say it is challenging? Because in our world, there are many distractions. And you have to really focus to become who God has called you to be. Now, when the father blesses his child, helping the child to understand that, son or daughter, you have great potential, but guess what? You have to always remember that no matter the challenges that come your way, you have to be you. You have to be the best version of you. You can't give in to the distractions or the things of this world that would want you to fit in. No, you were born to stand out, and that is what I want you to do, to stand out. Now, I'm just thinking when Jacob said to his grandsons, remember Avram. Avram stood out, right? Remember, Avram was from a family that were idolatrous, and God said to him, leave your family. You could have said, no, but why should I leave my family? I'm good here. I'm okay here. I'm familiar here. I know, what I'm supposed to do here. But he stood out. He came out of the box and he moved, and he became the father of multitudes. And that is what daddy does when he blesses his children. He helps the child to understand what it is not gonna be easy, but you have to have a made up mind. You have to have that mentality that, guess what, I must progress. I must become who God has called me to become or to be. Now, the final letter in the word Barak is Kaf, right? And it speaks to teaching or shaping oneself, bending the ego and shaping the character. So we know sometimes as human beings, our ego gets the best of us. But the resh shapes the ego because we can be egoistic and not become who we are called to be. Right? Because we can be filled with pride. And pride, is a downfall of man. And so the resh really shapes the character. So when dad blesses his children, he's shaping their character. Because I can recall in Genesis 48 when Jacob said, remember what I stand for. A man of truth. And Torah, that's why it is important to teach your children Torah, so that as they progress, as they go through their own experience, having Torah, their character can be sharpened and they can become who God has called them to be. The Resh also teaches us about what we contained. So it helps us so when dad blesses his children, it helps them to understand that, guess what? Oh, I have potential. Oh, dad sees that I can become great. Dad sees that I am a kingdom strategist. Dad sees that I have the solution, or I am the solution for the world's problem. So when dad blesses me, it gives me the confidence to know that, oh, I can do this, because greater is in me. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Dads, I encourage you, take the time out to bless your children. It is of great importance. It is very important that you bless your children. Shalom.